BIONICLE Adventures 5 Voyage of Fear. Written by Greg Farshidi. Recording by Trajan M. Chapter 6 Wanua's Tale. Long before the Morbuzok, long before the actions of the false Duma, long before the coming of the Toa Metru, the city of Metronui was a place of peace and learning. Outside of the citywide Akalini tournaments in the Colosseum, the only real excitement was when Rahi beasts would appear on the outskirts. Then Toa Likan and the Vaki squads would go into action, driving off the creatures or trapping them for display in the archives. Being an experienced archivist, it was not unusual for Wanua's day to begin with the news of the latest captures. But on this particular day, the pounding on his door was more frantic. He went to open it, mouthing a silent wish that no exhibits had broken free and trashed an entire wing, again. Onapu didn't even wait for the door to be fully ajar before slipping inside. His eyes were bright with excitement and his heart light was flashing wildly. "It's amazing! You have to come see! No one knows, not even Toa Likan!" "Slow down," said Wanua. "You're talking faster than Olima's horrid." "Come see what? Were more Rahi delivered? Or did the miners find more of those Borak things?" "Better than that, but I can't explain. The chief archivist wants you, me, and Mavra there right away." Onapu dashed back outside, with a confused Wenua following along behind. The last time the chief archivist wanted to see him, a few dozen ice bats had escaped from their tubes and infested the administrative offices. He hoped this time the meeting would not involve nets, boxes, or anything that flew. The trip took longer than Wenua expected. Onapu led him on a winding path to the archives, through chutes that dove deep beneath the surface and emerged in sublevels with which Wenua was only barely familiar. Then it was a long hike through abandoned tunnels to another chute, this one badly in need of repair, and another steep drop to a sublevel that didn't even show up on any archives charts. "Where are we?" "Come on," said Onapu. "Wait until you see this." The two Matoran rounded a corner to behold a stunning sight. This sublevel consisted almost completely of water, and in that water were creatures out of an archivist's dream. Or nightmare. There were huge aquatic beasts, large enough to swallow a muwaka in one gulp. Nearby were monstrous crabs strong enough to crush stone in their claws. The sight of one such Rahi would have been shocking, but there were dozens and dozens of them here. Wanua did not know what to say. Onapu simply smiled. Mavra was already there, just staring at the amazing display before him. "I told you," said Onapu. Even the chief archivist was speechless. "Where do they come from?" asked Wanua. What are they?" Mavra turned at the sound of voices. "They appeared off the coast of Onimetru last night," he said. "It took Motunui knows how many Vaki squads to herd them in here. This was the only spot in the city big enough to hold them all." Wanua watched as one of the creatures surfaced long enough to reveal a Takea shark trapped in its jaws. Then it dove again, leaving little doubt what the fate of that unlucky sea beast would be. "There isn't a stasis tube big enough in all of," Wanua began. "They aren't for exhibits." The three archivists turned to see Turaga Duma coming toward them. "The chief archivist has requested, and I have granted permission for these creatures to be kept here for study. They will not be placed in stasis so that the three of you can learn from conscious specimens." All three of them thanked the Turaga. Duma waved them off. "Don't thank me. This is against my better judgment. Unleashed creatures like these could destroy half the city. For that reason, this matter is to be kept a strict secret. I do not want panic in the city. Do you understand?" The archivist nodded. Never before had the Turaga knowingly allowed a danger to the city to exist within its borders. It was a little frightening to realize that not only the safety of the archives, but perhaps Metronui itself, depended on how well they did their jobs. "What about Toa Likan?" asked Wanua. "Surely he must know." "No," answered Duma. "Likan's first duty is to the safety of the city, and he cannot see beyond that. But the advancement of Matoran science requires risk. I have been convinced that there is something that can be learned from these monsters. Do not prove me wrong." A serpent that looked roughly the size of Po Metru raised its head above the water and bellowed. The sound shook the sublevel. "And Motunui protect us all," said Duma as he walked away. The three Onumatorans soon settled into a routine. Early each morning, they would travel together to the archives. Staying in each other's company helped them avoid talking with any other archivists who might be curious about their new project. They spent all day and most of the night observing and testing the strange sea creatures, noting down everything they could about the behavior and characteristics of the Rahi. Then they would return to their homes for an all-too-brief rest before starting all over again. Wenua and Onapu complained early and often that 3 Matoran were not enough to do this job well. But Mavra insisted that secrecy was vital to the success of the project, and the chief archivist backed him up. Fatigue and overwork eventually took their toll. The 3 Matoran began to quarrel over the slightest thing. Notes were misplaced, experiments accidentally ruined, and at one point, one of the Rahi almost slipped past both Onapu and the Vaki squad to make it back out to sea. That was enough to drive Mavra to fury.
"You idiots!" he shouted at Onapu. "Do you realize what might have happened if it escaped?"
"He's right," Wenua said. "It might have turned toward the city and harmed Matoran before it was stopped."
"Before it was stopped?" Mavra repeated in disbelief. "Before it was killed, you mean, along with our entire project. Your stupidity could have led to this Rahi's destruction, a tragic loss to science, all because you weren't paying attention."
It took some time for the hard feelings left over from that incident to ease. But worse was yet to come, and this time on Wenua's watch. He had been concentrating intensely on a creature that looked something like a Tarakava, only with multiple flippers that might evolve into feet one day. Though not big enough to be a physical threat to its neighbors, it was able to defend itself quite well with the help of twin ice beams from its eyes. The Rahi was so fascinating that Wenua never saw a far larger beast erupt out of the water. Other creatures immediately moved to challenge it, but the monstrous serpent shrugged them off as if they were raindrops. It was sick of captivity. Now was the time to escape or die trying. The monster leapt out of the water and crashed into the stone ceiling. The impact violently shook the archives, sending Wenua plunging into the makeshift holding tank. Before he could scramble back to safety, the Rahi struck again. This time, the force of the collision cracked the ceiling and shattered displays even on the uppermost levels. Wenua had his own problems at the moment. He was not a strong swimmer. Worse, his neighbors in the water had noticed a newcomer in their midst, one with no claws or teeth to defend himself. This would be an easy meal, they decided, and began to circle the Matoran. The archivist desperately tried to remember anything he had ever learned about fending off sea Rahi attacks. In a panic, he realized it was a subject he had never discussed. Onamatoran didn't go for swims after all, only Gamatoran were that insane. One squid-like Rahi reached out with its tentacle. Wenua frantically slapped it away, but he could already feel his arms and legs growing tired from treading water. He would run out of energy long before the Rahi ran out of interest. Then he would be just another archivist lost in the pursuit of knowledge. A shark moved in for the kill. Too tired to fight anymore, Wenua shut his eyes and waited for the end. But instead of a painful bite, he felt hands seize him and pull him up out of the water. A second later, he was back on solid ground, coughing and gasping for air. Mavra stood over him.
"What were you thinking diving in there?"
"I decided I needed a bath," Wenua snapped.
"You think it was my choice to be Rahi bait? The earth tremors knocked me in."
"Those weren't tremors," Mavra responded grimly. "One of our guests tried to escape. It's under control now, but there was a lot of damage up above. A Krawa broke free."
Wenua winced. The Krawa was an unusual Rahi who turned any force used against it into energy to grow. Hit it enough times and it would be bigger than the Colosseum. Getting it into the archives had taken multiple Vaki squads and resulted in 3 levels being trashed. If it was loose,
"How bad?"
he asked.
"A dozen Vaki smashed, 3 levels suffered critical damage, 4 more being evacuated, at least a few hundred exhibits awake and on the loose. It's a disaster."
"You have a gift for understatement, Mavra." The words came from Taragaduma. The elder was striding toward them, with the chief archivist running alongside, babbling apologies. Duma waved him away and looked directly at Mavra. "This project is terminated," he said. "As soon as order has been restored in the archives, the Vaki will drive these monsters back out of the city. A security zone will be established in the waters around Metronui. The Vaki have authorization to kill any of these Rahi who violates that zone."
"No!" Mavra shouted. "You mustn't do that! Think of the knowledge we will be losing, the potential for progress."
"This is not a debate," Taragaduma replied. Then in a softer tone, he added, I am sorry, Mavra. I know how much this project means to you, but I cannot jeopardize the safety of the archives or the city further. These things do not belong here. Duma turned to the chief archivist. See to it that the Vaki get any cooperation they require. I want these beasts gone by morning. That night was the longest Wenua had ever lived through. He couldn't help but thinking that if he had been paying more attention, maybe this would never have happened. Of course, he couldn't say how he would have stopped a massive Rahi who wanted out, but that was beside the point. Now the archives were half-wrecked, and the project was shut down. He had tried to apologize to Mavra for his mistake, but the Onimatoran was too upset to speak. He just stood there, staring at the Rahi, looking like he had lost his best friends. The next morning, Wenua returned to find the archives under lockdown. Vaki Rorzak were everywhere, watching carefully as Onimatoran crews struggled to return Rahi to their stasis tubes. Inside, other crews used regeneration discs to repair structural damage. The sheer magnitude of the damage was staggering. He made his way down to the sublevel where the Rahi had been held. He expected to find it abandoned. Instead, it was filled with Rorzak and a very worried chief archivist. "They're gone," the administrator said. "All of them. Disappeared."
"Wasn't that the point?"
Wenua asked. "You don't understand. The Rahi are gone, but the Vaki didn't take them. They escaped back to sea somehow. The Vaki are bringing Onopu and Mavra here now." A Rorzak squad appeared a moment later, shoving Onopu in front of them. A second squad was right on their heels, but empty-handed. "Where's Mavra?" asked the chief archivist. The Vaki shrugged. Wenua had no doubt they had searched Mavra's home and everywhere he might be hiding before returning to admit failure. Rorzak were nothing if not thorough. "He must be on his way then," the chief archivist muttered, not sounding at all convinced that was the case. "I've already spoken with the Turaga. He is sending Bordak and Rorzak to find the creatures. Of course, the important thing is that they're gone. But I think we all want to find out how and why." Wenua said nothing, but he had a horrible suspicion he already knew the answers to those questions. The mystery of the missing Rahi was never solved. The chief archivist's official report to the Turaga stated that the creatures must have contrived a mass escape. The Vaki on duty had done nothing to prevent it because their orders were to see to it that the Rahi left. It made no difference to them how that happened. The report further stated that, in trying to stop the escape, Mavra had been lost and was presumed dead. Although his sacrifice could not be publicly recognized without revealing the existence of the project, the sublevel would be renamed in his honor. Wenua always suspected that Turaga Duma knew more about what happened than he had let on. He called off the Vaki search for the Rahi after only a very short time, as if he knew they would not be found, nor would Mavra. Whatever the Rorzak knew about the situation, they communicated only to the Turaga. After a while, things returned to normal in the archives. Wenua and Onopu both made an effort to forget all that had gone on. It was easier to simply accept the official report and mourn for their friend. After all, the only alternative theory of what happened that night was too far-fetched to ever believe. Or so they thought. End of Chapter 6.